is Matt Carpenter. I'm one of the founders here. I'm just north of Boston. We have our office in Salem, Mass. And my colleague Peggy, who I'll let her say hi and introduce herself, is on the other coast there in Seattle. But I've been doing this an awful long time, my entire career. This is all I know, this kind of unique space that is financial aid scholarships, etc. So I like to see with that kind of frontline experience, I've I think I've seen just about every situation. I've worked up with every college you've heard of. So again, I share that just to say this is a great opportunity to get questions that you have answered. And something we take very seriously is considering ourselves the source of truth, right? There's so much information out there. I think most of it is well intentioned, but that doesn't make it any less confusing or necessarily true for you, right? Your neighbor, your colleague, your brother-in-law says this college doesn't give any money or don't bother applying for financial aid. You're not going to get anything. We are your source of truth. So when you have questions in this process, please start here, right? And then go gut check it elsewhere if you want. But anyway, something we take very seriously and are excited to kind of demonstrate again over the next 50 minutes here. But Peggy, the aptly named fairy godmother of financial aid, if you want to say hi, and then we'll get cooking.
Uh, um, yeah, as Matt said, I mean, there's a lot of information out there. Some of it is flat out wrong, to be honest. And then some of it, it's a lot. It's a lot to understand this. That's why I'm sure a lot of you, we didn't ask, but I'm sure a lot of you have been on our webinars. And we just try and show up basically in this college planning space as the source of truth, as your support system. We know the journey you're on. Most of you have a senior right now. You're kind of in the crux of it, and it's FAFSA time, right? FAFSA went live a little bit ago, and so that's what we're mostly gonna be focusing on today. But as Matt said, love questions, put them in the Q&A. This is being recorded. That's the other thing we always get asked a bazillion times. So you will get the recording, you will get a follow-up email from us. So other people in your family can watch it, you can share it with friends, whatever you want to do. So keep that in mind. I have twins who have been through this. I've been doing this for quite a while, started my own business doing it, joined CAP about 3.5 years ago. But I get it. I get where you're sitting. I get the stresses. Schools weren't over 100,000 when my two were going, but they weren't cheap, right? So I get it. And you will get through it, but understanding the pieces you're halfway there, not being clueless and drifting through this. So that's why we're here. So let me kick this off. I'm going to share my screen. And as Matt said, he's one of the co-founders of College Aid Pro. And this truly, truly is our mission. All of us on we're not a huge team, but we are a mighty team and we're growing by the day. This truly is what gets us out of bed, to end the student debt crisis by empowering you to shop smarter for college. So each piece of this journey, you have to have your ducks in a row to be able to maximize it from a financial standpoint, just the whole process. Admissions is so much intertwined as well. So that's who we are. That's what keeps Matt and I going. And there we are, the happy couple. Yeah, I'm the director of education here. So doing this kind of stuff is what I do. So everybody should have received an email. So Matt, if you've got a link to put in the chat, we have software. We can see a lot of you already did this based on what we can see on the back end from the email we sent out. So awesome job. Or you might already have an account because you've been with us. Strongly recommend you set up, we call it MyCap, our software on the consumer side. There's a free version. You can put up to 3 colleges in there. It's still extremely useful, even if you have a senior and that's your only child, because the next step, you're submitting these forms, you're going to get financial aid award letters, and you can upload those into the software. We'll translate them for you, break down the pieces so you understand exactly what the college is offering you. There's over 900 versions of financial aid award letters that come out, and some are downright confusing. Some are very brief and you need more information. Let us support you on that step. And then we'll take the next step and say, hey, should you be appealing and why? That's a whole webinar in and of itself that we're going to start doing very soon. And then we'll help you look at all your buckets to figure out your first year. So it's not just to build the college list. It does that very effectively, but my point is you still should be in the software. You can set up the free version. We're going to talk about how, as Matt said, how we can support you further. And you can put in those 3 colleges and see your SAIs and all that great stuff. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to get started here, just to give you an overview of financial aid, because I know we have people coming in with different levels of familiarity with this whole process. So in order for you to understand why we're even talking about the FAFSA, it's important to get the higher level.
Yeah, to Peg's point, right? Everybody's here today to just kind of learn best practices and do's and don'ts around the FAFSA. Certainly, we're going to accomplish that goal. But anytime we talk, we think it's really important to look at the broader context of this whole thing, right? FAFSA is an important part of this process, but it's one piece in the bigger puzzle. So we always want to look at it, kind of through that lens. So very briefly, in its simplest terms, what is financial aid? It's anytime we're getting a discount, right? Anytime we're not paying the full rack rate, the full sticker price out of college, that means we're getting some type of financial aid. And there's 3 broad buckets. There's need-based grants, okay, and that is determined based on your family's student aid index, or SAI. I'll go over that in a little bit more detail on the next slide here. But if you're eligible for need-based financial aid and the college is a type of college that has some level of a certain level of generosity, that's where we get discounts based on our family's financial profile, okay, and specifically the SAI. Merit-based scholarships, these are our traditional discounts that are given just really based on your student's credentials, right? So these are, right now, a lot of these admissions counselors are getting your kids' applications and they're taking a look at them. And I'm sure in some cases going, hey, look it, we don't care what type of financial resources this family has. We want this student at our campus. We're going to give them a financial incentive to come here, right? That's a merit-based scholarship. In some ways, the opposite end of the spectrum of need-based grants, because again, they don't care about the financial piece. They only care about that student's credentials. The last type of financial aid, this is the one that we are least focused on, because self-help financial aid is kind of a sexy term for loans, okay? And there is a space for it. There is every single person that completes the FAFSA will be entitled to some self-help financial aid, and we think you should leverage that in for any number of reasons, of which we'll talk through. But it's again, it's not free money coming right off the top. Okay, Peggy. So this slide here, it's important that you're comfortable with how this formula works, right? Because I would say, I promise you, I'm going to say it many times today. As a matter of fact, I have already. When people ask me a particular question, oftentimes I'm going to say, well, it depends on the college, right? It depends on your situation. It depends. It depends. In these 4,000 colleges, right, you have to look at them like individual businesses. That's certainly how they are run, right? That's how they run their institutions. But they're each run their businesses differently. Okay, so which makes it confusing. And again, they're going to treat every family differently. So anytime there's a universal formula, we at least want to grab hold of that. And fortunately, when it comes to need-based financial aid, this is the formula that every single college uses for every single student. Okay, and that is the cost of attendance, or the sticker price. Peg mentioned starting next year, we're going to see a couple dozen colleges break into the $100,000 cost of attendance sticker price. Okay, which is just wild to say out loud. Minus the student aid index, that dollar amount that gets assigned to your family. Okay, after you complete the FAFSA and or the CSS profile. Some of you already know what that is. Actually, most of you have already set up your account with us, so you already know what your SAI is. We've taken the kind of anticipation out of that. And if there's a difference between those two figures, if your student aid index is less than the cost of attendance at any given college, that is the amount of potential need-based financial aid you're eligible for. And potentially, you see us, we have it bold, we have it underlined. We'd have it light up with even more emphasis if we could, because just because you're eligible for financial aid, it doesn't mean you're going to get it, right? And the biggest variable there is, what college are we talking about? Now, again, for those of you that have set up your account, you already know exactly how much financial aid each of the colleges that you're considering are going to give you. But if you're kind of just brand new to this, that's kind of our foundation here. Okay, Peggy, if you would. So look, at just by a lot of large numbers here, and just by some of the different zip codes from the country that you are all tuning in from, I can all but guarantee there's a percentage of you, you're not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid, right? And there's not a magic wand that I can wave, that Peggy can wave to change that. That's just the deal. Now, you're not going to disqualify yourself by not going through this process, but some of you, that's just how it's going to shake out. Doesn't mean you're ready to start paying $100,000 a year for college, right? So how are you going to get your discounts? The most common, the most reliable, the best place to spend most of our time and energy is going after merit-based scholarships, specifically from colleges. They're going to be good fits for your kid. We'll show you in a second exactly how to do that. Okay. A couple talking points before we do. Number one, some of these colleges, they require that you complete the financial aid applications. If we're talking about an NYU, for example, they have scholarships, but you have to complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile to even be considered, right? To even have your hat thrown in the ring for consideration there, regardless of your financial aid eligibility. I also think it's important, especially for folks maybe going through this process for the first time, and maybe your kids are these really talented kids applying to these really challenging colleges from an admissions standpoint. There's about 100 colleges that don't offer scholarships anymore, which again is relatively new. There's not one Ivy League college that offers scholarships. Nobody at MIT or Tufts or Bates or Bowdoin or Wesleyan or Amherst or Middlebury is there on a scholarship. So it's just important to know as you're finalizing or starting to build your list of colleges, which ones are scholarships even possible at, right? And lastly, again, this is just not common knowledge in my experience, unless you're kind of a very savvy consumer. And that's you have to apply to competing colleges. Okay. Again, I mentioned I'm in the Boston area here, very millions of colleges around us, right? And if you're gun ho about Boston University, but you really didn't like Northeastern because you don't, the co-op program's not for you, you didn't like that area of the city, I'm still going to make you apply to Northeastern, just knowing that we're going to use that offer to get more money out of BU. This is especially important, okay, if you're not eligible for need-based financial aid. It's a smart strategy for everybody, but especially if we're not eligible for need-based aid, have to apply to competing colleges. All right, Peggy, if I could share just my screen for just a second here.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, yeah.
Okie dokie. So this is again, oops, sorry about that.
Guys, just a reminder to put all your questions in the Q&A versus the chat.
I don't know what's going on here. I wonder if something's going on with our platform, Peggy.
Yeah,
Give
I've
me
got
one
it open.
second, team. I'm getting a pop-up that I can't get rid of.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Are you want me to share and you talk
No,
through
it looks
mine?
like it's gone now. Okay. So look, you guys have already created your accounts here. If you haven't, do it right now. You know what your SAIs are, right? This is the result of the FAFSA. This is the result of the CSS profile, or maybe a school like Princeton that has their own application. I want you focused on what these colleges are actually going to cost you, right? You see the $100,000 college at Columbia, that's going to be more affordable than the in-state flagship university for this Massachusetts family, right? Out-of-state schools, okay, they're not $100,000, but guess what? UCs aren't cheap and they don't give money. So you need to understand what these colleges are going to cost you before you even apply there in a perfect world, right? Or certainly give yourself as much time as possible before your typical May 1st deadline that we have to make a decision on senior year. And if we're still rounding out our list of schools, and you may consider doing this even if you thought you were done, just to come up with another competitive offer, right? But you can use our platform here to say, hey, look, I know my kid's going to want to be in a smaller school, and they probably want to be, pretty close to home. And again, there's dozens of filters you can put in here, but we'll just do, 3. And maybe they want to major in bio. And I can go search that, but then I can just rank order. And this is, again, especially if we're not eligible for need-based aid, who's going to give my kid the most in merit-based scholarships, right? And these aren't averages. This is specific to you, okay? So, maybe, Clarkson wasn't on your list, but if they're going to give you 40 grand regardless of your income, that's interesting, right? Actually, it happens to have a great bio program as well. Or we can sort, if we are eligible for financial aid, just based on who's going to give us the most in need-based financial aid. Obviously, it's incredibly challenging to get into MIT, but here's some other schools that are outstanding with financial aid and maybe are a little bit more realistic from an admissions standpoint. So make sure that you are leveraging the platform that you have at your fingertips. Again, you don't have to be one of these families of which school is going to give us financial aid, which schools are going to give us scholarships, which schools can we use as a negotiating chip for our top choice or choices. It's all in there. So just make sure that you are taking advantage. And just a reminder, guys, and I'm sure I know a bunch of you weren't here right at the top when we mentioned this. Please put all the questions in the Q&A as opposed to the chat.
It's nice, and I answered a couple, but
Peggy, wow, you're getting soft. You're getting
I'm
it's a holiday
really,
spirit or something, I guess.
I know, seriously. All right.
Um, and I think I
Maybe
have
we,
one more slide
nope,
here
you
before.
have
Okay,
one more. Yep.
Yeah. So look it. This is one of the most common questions we'll get. Why should I even bother? I know I'm not eligible. Blah 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 blah. Here's a few reasons that we recommend, really universally, that you submit the financial aid forms. Again, number one, there's millions of dollars that get left on the table each year because people disqualify themselves by not applying incorrectly. Okay. I mentioned NYU as an example. They're certainly not the only college where, in order to be considered for merit, you have to do the financial aid applications. Here's another thing that, again, is not common knowledge in my experience. If you do not apply for financial aid freshman year, you are telling that college you're willing to pay full sticker price all 4 years. Okay. You don't get to decide sophomore year, oh, I lost a job. Oh, we have a younger sibling going to college. Now I'd like to apply. They're going to say sorry. Right. So again, you have to understand this is not oh, we'll just do it next year, right? Type of deal. That's not how it works. We recommend to just about everybody that you appeal. Now, what we're doing is negotiating, right? We're negotiating with the college to get a better offer than our initial offer. We have to use the word appeal, but um, and it's something a very important part of this process to make this colleges more affordable. But the colleges won't even hear your argument unless you've at least gone through the formality of submitting the financial aid applications. Okay. Last one I'll spend just a second on. I teased it in kind of the first slide in the deck here. If you complete a FAFSA, you are guaranteed, okay, or the student is guaranteed to borrow up to $27,000 through the federal direct student loan over the course of 4 years, right? 5,500 freshman year, 6,500 sophomore year, 7,500 junior and senior year. You're guaranteed to get this. It's just in the student's name. They don't need established credit. They don't need a cosigner. They're not going to get a bill until 6 months after they graduate. And it's by far the most flexible repayment terms you're going to find anywhere. Okay. I recommend everybody takes advantage of this for one of two reasons. Number one, if you want or need your kids to have skin in the game, here's your best option. This is where everybody should start. Let's say you're fortunate enough where you say, look, we don't need our kids to borrow. We don't want our kids to borrow. Fine. Take out this loan every year. Pay it off instantaneously before any interest accrues. You do that every year, they'll graduate with almost perfect credit. They'll graduate with like a 780 credit score because technically this loan is just in their name. In short, you have to talk me out of why it's not a good idea to leverage what you're entitled to there in one way or the other, or for one reason or the other. All right, Peggy, I'll shut up.
All right. And speaking from experience on that one, when your child graduates, they want to move in an apartment with a bunch of their buddies. And if they don't have established credit, guess what they're doing? They're coming to you and saying, hey, can you co-sign my lease? So it's a great thing for them to establish credit. And I am here. I don't know why my video isn't showing up, but Carp, can you see my video?
I can see you. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Then it's just
Yep.
me. That's perfect. Okay.
You look great, by the way, Peggy. I like your
Oh,
sweater.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Um, all right, guys. So let's get into the form. We've already had a few good questions about the form, and I said, hey, I answered them, but I said I'm gonna go into detail here. So I like to start with just, relax. I know these forms are a little stressful, but realize that you can take breaks. Now, if you have a looming deadline, then you've added a little stress, but it is what it is. You can save and come back later, and you can fix mistakes. And I'm talking about the CSS profile, if that is something you had to do with your child, as well as the FAFSA. We're here to kind of give you best practice. So hopefully you don't make any mistakes, but realize it's not, oh my gosh, I realize I made a mistake from what you're sharing today. And then that creates more stress. That's the last thing we want to do. You can fix it, and we can support you to the extent of even handling it for you, having you review and hit submit. And we'll talk about that at the end. And, I think this whole process requires taking a lot of deep breaths. Having kids requires that in general. So it's just a piece of the journey. So today we're focusing on the FAFSA. So obviously it's live. It went live in November for everybody. If you've been in there, you've noticed all of the questions are about 2023. The tax questions. It's prior year. It's a 2-year look back. I know we have a couple 26 parents on here today, class of 2026. All the questions when you get to this fall and you're doing it, they're all going to be about 2024. It's always a 2-year look back. A key thing about the FAFSA, which is, and I didn't mention this in my intro, but I'm an advisor, financial planner by background before I just focused on this piece of financial planning. So I'm all about planning opportunities and finding places where you can put your best foot forward in this process to basically save money, find a great fit school for your child. So if you are divorced or separated, there are planning opportunities, significant ones, and this is one of them. On the FAFSA, only one biological parent is submitting this form with your child, and that parent is called the custodial parent. The definition of this changed last year and going forward, right? So the 24-25 school year was the first one that had this change with the FAFSA changes. It's defined as the parent who provides the most financial support on a year look back from when you're submitting the form. So if you're a family, if you're hearing that and you're a family, it's like, well, we kind of go 50-50 on financial support for Shannon, our child, that's my daughter's name. You got a planning opportunity there. Figure out which parent is the most advantageous to submit the form, and that should be the parent who should be the custodial parent. By the way, this can change every year if the parent who's providing more support changes. So it's not set in stone for 4 years. It does need to match the CSS profile in a given year if you're submitting that form. So if you've already submitted the CSS profile, chosen your custodial parent, then it is what it is, unless you made a major mistake. Then you're going to have to go back and fix it. And if you did make a major mistake, you probably should, and we can guide you on that. And it's literally from when you're submitting the form. So if your earliest deadline is February 1 and you're not submitting that form until after the holidays, you've got some time for one parent to spend a little bit more money on your child. And that could mean, depending on the school, tens of thousands of dollars potentially, hypothetically, of money from the college instead of you spending that money or you borrowing that money to pay for college. So think about that. Make sure you understand that piece. If you are remarried, that's the household. So your spouse and your new spouse's assets and income, that's all part of it. It's not just the biological. Say you decide dad is the custodial parent, dad's remarried, that's part of the bundle. So keep that in mind when you're figuring it out if you're 50-50 support. Okay. And it doesn't matter if they're not contributing or there's a prenup, none of that matters. Okay. So this is a big, like I said, big planning opportunity, big difference from the CSS profile. So let's talk about who is submitting the FAFSA. The key thing, and I don't think I put the slide in, but to get into the FAFSA, the contributors, which is what they're calling the people that are sharing their information on the student FAFSA, each contributor needs to have a federal student aid ID and password. We call it FSA ID. If you Google create FSA ID, probably the first thing that pops up, it's a studentaid.gov/da-da-da-da-da URL. That's where you want to go. If you haven't done that, do it today. Your child needs to do it. If you have other kids, it's per person. You can't use one you have triplets, say, they each need their own. You're going to be submitting 3 FAFSAs. There's no combining of this, okay? But when it comes to the other contributors, I want to take a few minutes to talk about who they are, because I know there's confusion. I already answered one question in the Q&A earlier today. So if you are married and you file your taxes married filing jointly, one parent needs to get the FSA ID and password, because what you are doing, and I'm going to show you this in a minute, when you go into the FAFSA, you are going to consent and approve for the IRS to move your financial data, we call it FTI, federal tax information, into your part of the FAFSA that will be part of your child's FAFSA. You have to consent to that because it's yours, right? The government can't be moving around your information without your consent. Well, if you're married filing jointly, you have one tax return. So both parents don't need to consent because it's one tax return. Now, on the flip side, if you're married and you file married filing separately, guess what? You each file a tax return, you each need to consent. So you both need to go get that FSA ID and password. And the reason why I want you to do that today is because when you create that, that information gets sent to the Social Security Administration. They verify that you are who you are. Send you an email saying you're good to go. You can't finish the FAFSA without that approval from SSA. So you want to get that done. I don't know how long it's taking them to get back to families. Usually it's relatively quick, but now we're in crunch time for a lot of people and everybody's in there doing it. If you are divorced, you probably know where I'm going here. If you're divorced, only that custodial parent is going to get that FSA ID and password, because that's the only parent, like I said, that is going to consent to move their information into the FAFSA. The non-custodial parent, biological parent, is not involved in the FAFSA at all for that school year, whoever you've designated as non-custodial. So they're literally not involved. So that's how it works. Once you go in that FAFSA, give consent, you can't revoke it for that year. You're going to do this every year. And I'm going to show you some screenshots now so you can see the flow. Oh, I did put this in. So there's the URL. Just make sure you're on studentaid.gov, because I'm sure there's copycat sites, because you're going to put in your social security number and your date of birth, and especially your social, obviously highly confidential in this day and age of identity theft. Be careful. Make sure you're there. Do that now. It's super fast. You create security questions. Put that information, like I have a password protected password spreadsheet. That's where I put all my stuff. Wherever you put it, you're going to need that every year. So get that done, create it, and save it. And again, it's per student. So this is a slide directly from Federal Student Aid. This is the flow of the FAFSA as of last year. So this is what we recommend at CAP as far as of best practice to complete it. Go to FAFSA.gov and see right there, you go to FAFSA.gov and you're going to hit login to start. And you're going to say that you're the student and start on the student section. There's personal circumstances. Then there's an invitation part. And I have a screenshot of this. I'll show you in a few minutes. The student, and you're there helping them, however you're doing it, is actually going to invite their contributors, the people that need to supply their information. Again, married filing jointly, it's one contributor separately. I went through all that. They're going to put in the information, invite the parent. Don't worry about that. Just keep going. Student goes through, finishes their sections. All the colleges get added here. They sign. Then the parent or that contributor, whoever the contributor is, should have an invitation in their email. If they don't, they can go to FAFSA.gov and log in with their FSA ID and password that's been approved by SSA, and there will be a place to start it. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. They sign it, then all the contributors sign, then the FAFSA is complete, and you'll get a message saying that, which I'll show you in a minute. So again, you're going to log on to start. Make sure you're doing 25-26, because if I was on the web page, if you scroll down, you can still do 24-25. That's not what you want if you have a child who's a senior in high school. Put in the FSA ID and password. There's two-factor authentication. So you want to make sure your child probably put in something to text and an email. Sal, an email. Make sure if you're working on this with them or for them, you can get that code, or else you can't move it forward. Okay. Once you're in, it's going to say, who are you? We're going to say, all right, we're the student. That's the part we're doing. There's a set of 4 videos. the first time you're in there, just take a few minutes and listen to them. They're not very long, gives you a nice overview of what you're doing and the different pieces if you're brand new to this. Then you are on the consent and approve that I talked about. Read through this and you're going to say, "Yup, I approve. I approve for my information to get moved into my portion as a contributor, or if it's the student portion." Once you do that, this is new. If we have any parents that did it last year, this is new. It's going to pop up and say, "Hey, we're securely importing your information that you said we could." It'll sit there. For most people, it comes up and says successfully imported. If you get a message that says that it didn't, most likely you fall into an exception. So they're going to require you to enter a few fields of tax information that wouldn't be required if it was moved from the IRS. Don't panic. You'll just see that when you get to the financial section. So now we're into, this is the student. You can see up here it says student. Here's the 5 parts that I showed you on the best practice slide. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to show you a few that might not be. There's a lot of questions about your child to make sure that they truly are a dependent student. Most kids are, but there are some kids that are homeless, or it's all different pieces that can be considered independent. We're going to assume the student is a dependent student. They're going to ask if the student has any unusual circumstances. Fortunately, most kids are going to be able to say no, because these are pretty crummy circumstances. They say yes, there'll be a few different pieces that pop up, and they're going to be interacting with the colleges around that. Then it's going to pop up and determine, all right, you're a dependent student, which means we need contributor information. Are your parents, and it really should say students contributors, refusing to provide the information? Most people are going to say no. My contributors are going to provide it. I'm going to invite them. If they are refusing and you are truly only doing this form so that you're eligible for those loans that Matt referenced, an unsubsidized version of them, then you're going to mark yes. But most people are going to mark no here. And if you mess up because you're going quickly, it's going to help you and say, "Are you sure?" Because if you don't have your contributors contributing, you will not be eligible for federal aid, state aid, and most colleges, you're not going to be eligible either. So it's a lot of money you're leaving on the table. So make sure you have your ducks in a row if you're going to say yes there and you really know what you're doing. Then they're going to start asking about the parents, because they're going to it's trying to decide who needs to be invited as a contributor. So then the invite pops up. So this is a family where one parent is required to submit it. You see here where my red arrow is really little, it says optional in italics. So it says optional, you don't need to fill it in. Some people get confused, like, why is it asking for the other parent? It does on the parent side, even if you're married, filing jointly, just fill it in. The key thing here in the invitation is however that contributor set up their FSA ID, as far as email, everything, it has to perfectly match when you're inviting them. So just make sure, because otherwise that can cause errors and stress and yada yada. So make sure they match. Do this, send the invite, and keep moving in the student FAFSA. Then you get to the demographics part. I don't have screenshots here. It's pretty straightforward. A lot of questions. There's a bunch of questions that the Department of Ed, asks for statistical reasons, race, ethnicity. You can say prefer not to answer, you can answer it. Then you get to the financials. So this is the meat of it, all right? Most people, as I said, if you look at the last bullet, are not going to be inputting income information because it's going to move from the IRS. Most adult contributors are filing a tax return. Students, a lot of times they're not required to file, so there's nothing to move over. So they'll be asked adjusted gross income. What are your earnings? What were your federal income taxes? For a lot of kids, if they mowed lawns or whatever they did, you put the amount, you just put those numbers there. They don't have W-2s, just fill it in. Um, They are going to ask everybody, unless you fall into an exception, about your assets, your non-retirement assets. So the questions will be checking and savings and net worth of investments. What goes in that bucket are everything that's non-retirement that's not checking and savings. And it includes real estate that's not the home you live in. So the equity in that real estate, which is cost of attendance, which is the market value of your home or vacant land, whatever it is, minus your liens. And market value should be the lowest reasonable market value. We help people with that one-on-one. We can't tell you en masse or through Q&A exactly what yours should be, but you want to be honest, but you want to get that as low as possible. All of that is included in the net worth of investments. They're going to ask if you're a business owner, your business value. Again, be honest. Some businesses literally have a zero value. Of course, some do not. We can help you with that if you're not sure how to do that. The last thing you want to do is overestimate things because the SAI that Matt talked about will be higher. Okay. And then on the parent side, when the parent's going to have the same tabs there as the student, they're going to ask family size, and you want to check that number. It's pretty much always wrong. So you want to make sure what's your household size that's on your tax return. And if it's changed since 2023, put the correct number there. If you have a grandparent that's moved in and you're providing over half the support, that's somebody that's part of your family size. For financial aid, number in college, definitely put that in. If you're divorced and separated and you're receiving child support, they're going to ask that. That's based on the last calendar year. Just to make things confusing, it's a different timeline than your asset values. All right. So that's the financial section. Then only on the student side, they're going to say, okay, we need to know all the colleges that you want this FAFSA information sent to. You can put in up to 20, which is awesome. Most kids don't have more than 20. If your child happens to, you got to send it off. You got to let it process. You go back in, delete some of those, say 5, if they have 25 schools, put those in and send it. You've got to make sure that it processed though. Okay. Because if it didn't process, it's happening very quickly now. The information is sent to the colleges. It's called ICERs. That's what we call it in the back end. Colleges get it. They're going to start creating financial aid packages if your child's admitted, which is the next step in the process. So plug in all those schools. It's pretty straightforward. Main thing is look at the school because some schools have a bunch of campuses. Make sure you pick the correct campus for that to go to. Don't pick Vanderbilt Law School when you really want Vanderbilt undergrad. So just take your time and make sure you're picking the correct school. Pretty straightforward there. Then the student is almost at the end. There's going to be a review page. This actually is a screenshot of the parent review page. The students is going to look exactly the same. There's just going to be a few more categories because remember, they have a few more categories in there. Colleges is going to be there. Strongly recommend you click on these expanders and just give it a once over. You might have put an extra 0 in your checking and savings. You don't want that, right? That's going to shoot up your SAI. So just give it a once over or have your partner come and give it a once over and then hit continue. Then you're going to click your box and the student's going to sign and submit their part of the FAFSA. Okay. Then this is what's going to pop up. You're almost there. We have one contributor. You sent the invite. Now that's the second piece to go and get that piece done. Okay. So then the parent or that contributor is going to go to the email and go into the student FAFSA or accept the invitation when they're logged in. And then they're going to go in. Remember my screenshot? They're going to go in. They're going to follow those 3 steps. And once they finish their personal circumstances, their financials, which most likely most of it will move over from the IRS, they're going to review and sign. Once all the contributors have done it, because some families might have more than one contributor on top of the student, then you're going to get a message that might look like this. It might have an estimated SAI. It might not. Don't worry about that. What you're looking for is congratulations, it's complete. There's a completion date. student be getting an email very soon after, but screenshot this just in case, because that's your proof that you submitted the FAFSA before a deadline, because all these colleges have different deadlines, priority financial aid deadlines. You've got to look those up and make sure you're getting it in. Make sure you look in your child's email, have them look. If they got the email, have them forward it to you and save it. So check the email once it's processed, which should be pretty quick. There's a FAFSA submission summary in your child's studentaid.gov account. Then you can actually go see the SAI. That's where you make corrections. Everything is there. So that's the process. That's what we recommend as the best flow. Real quick summary, no retirement account balances in the FAFSA. Your primary home that you live in, that's not included at all in the FAFSA. If you have 529s, the balance in that 529 is only included on the asset part for the parents if the parent owns the account, which is typical. Student's a beneficiary, grandma owns it, non-custodial parent owns it, not included on the FAFSA. That's in that net worth of investments. If you get the work study question, click yes. It just gives you the option. It might not even be applicable to your family. It doesn't hurt you. Realize that SAI that you see in your MyCap account that you created, that's not the maximum you're going to be expected to pay. So just keep that in mind. That's where all this planning comes in. As I said, don't overvalue your business or any of your real estate that you might have that's not your primary home. You don't want to lie, but you don't want to overvalue, and we can help you with that. And like I said a few minutes ago, watch the deadlines. And unfortunately, they're different at each school. You got to go on their website, make sure you've got your ducks in a row and get those forms in before, or else you literally are giving the college the ability to say, yeah, the Keough family, they missed the deadline, so we don't need to. We owe them 20,000 in need-based grants, but we're giving them 10. And I've seen it happen, and I've gone to bat for families, and sometimes colleges, they're just like, sorry, you missed the deadline. So it can be very, very punitive. So just stay on top of that. And that's the end of my slides. I'm going to stop share in a minute, but I started with the whale fluke because I'm a whale person. And this is my puppy dog, Ashling. So just, I'm trying to bring a little relaxation around this process that can be kind of hard. Hugely positive thing this year is that last year the FAFSA was a mess. It was the first year, and it is flowing so much better now. So that's a big positive.
Yeah, and we'll guys do our best to continue to ask questions. Again, they have to be in the Q&A, not the chat, to give yourselves an opportunity here. But I want to talk through how we can support you beyond this, right? And moving forward. And we kind of have three buckets here. And just think about who you are. You got to take some action. If you're a DIYer, I'll kind of get to those last. If you're like, look, I want somebody to take up over this process for me. We have our wake me up when it's over financial aid service, and then we kind of have a middle ground. So I want to start with that first kind of option, right? How we support people here, because we're running a promotion that usually this is kind of unorthodox for us to take families this late in the process for class 2025. But we do have with some of our ED acceptances and folks kind of all across the finish line, so to speak, a few more people we can take on. So a little bit more about us, right? Peg and I mentioned it at the top, her and I personally, and certainly collectively as a team, we got a ton of experience. We've been doing this a very, very long time. We got some current financial aid personnel or former financial aid personnel that is a part of our team from some pretty impressive institutions and admissions folks as well. But I think why most people hire us is they say, look, I'm going to invest in you guys because I think you're going to save me more money. And that's why you should hire us, right? On average, we save families $70,000 a year for college. Sorry, not a year. We save families $70,000 over the course of 4 years for college. Okay. That's a conservative number. It is a data-driven number. It is a number that we can stand tall on. So if you're thinking about hiring us, that is why you should hire us. Okay. In addition, you get one-on-one unlimited support from now, and that doesn't matter if you're class 2026, 27, or 25, from now until your student moves into the dorm. And then here's what we're going to do for you, right? We are going to take care of all the financial aid applications. Okay. We're going to do the FAFSA. We're going to do the CSS profile. We're going to do the institutional applications. If you've already submitted them, it's not too late. We can walk back anything. Okay. And I promise you, we're likely going to. We're going to say, no, this is how to value your home. No, this is how to value your business. No, this is how your assets and investments should be presented to the colleges to get you the maximum amount of discounts. If you haven't submitted these or you haven't started them, put down your pencil. Don't start them. Again, we would rather be involved from the beginning. We're going to make sure that you are applying to competing colleges, right? We have to have leverage on our list. So we're going to have some recommendations to say the last thing your kids are going to want to hear is applying to more colleges. And then, again, they don't have to necessarily do it right now, but pretty stinking soon. Again, to make sure that we have leverage. And you heard us kind of allude to this part of the process before, but it's another place where we provide a ton of value. Okay. We're going to do the negotiating. We won't use that word. We're going to do the appealing for you, right? Do you know whether you should be appealing to the admissions office, the financial aid office, both, right? Again, we know that. How should you be doing it? It's not just about asking for more money. You have to have a certain level of sophistication to give yourselves a chance, okay? Again, we know how these schools work. We know how to go back to who to get more money, okay? And finally, we're going to help you pay the bill, right? If you have to borrow, how do you get the lowest rate, right? A lot of people will say, look, we can't afford to work with you guys, but we'll say, guys, you got to come up with $40,000 in 6 months, right? That's how you should be looking at this, okay? Because how you do that is mission critical. And of course, this is a lot of money. The last thing you want to think about is spending money, but usually if you go to look at our prices on the internet right now, it's $3,500 through tonight. Okay. Through tonight, we will be offering a 20% discount code. Okay. So what is that? Six, and you can do it right through your, Peg. I'll make sure that I get this link in the chat here.
Yeah, I put the link. It's already in there,
Okay,
but you
great.
can put it
So
in again if you
right
want.
through here, I just go, hey, I'd like to sign up. And let's just say if you sign up for the monthly installments, just to be clear, there is a finance fee there. So again, we talk about being transparent. That's make sure you're aware. So let's just say you want to pay one time and I'm gonna pay, and then I go to put in my coupon code here, uh, DEAS20. I go to apply, and we see our $700 get taken off there, and you're off to the races. Do that today, guys, because that will expire tonight. And let's just say you're like, oh man, I definitely want to do this before they run out of these packages or before this promotion expires, but I didn't get to talk to my partner or I didn't get to talk to my ex-partner. Lock it in tonight, and then you can talk to me tomorrow and have your partner included in that call, or your ex-partner. If they didn't get to, be a part of this today, ask their own questions. And if you say, you know what, I got buyer's remorse, so this actually wasn't the right move, we'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. But at least make sure that we can take care of you, especially if you're class 2025. You have less urgency if you're class 2026, but the coupon will still expire. So if you know this is a good fit for you, which it is, take advantage of that because you're not going to get a better deal there. And again, unlimited hours, one-on-one until your kids move into their dorm. Okay. So make sure that you take advantage of that. Now, some of you are just going to be saying, you know what? I'm just a DIYer. I would never hire anyone to change the oil in my car or paint my house or do the tile in my bathroom, whatever. You know who you are. If you're a DIYer, at a minimum, what you should be doing is you should be buying an hour with one of our pros. Okay. Let us review your FAFSA. Let us help with the appeal. Let us, take a look at that CSS profile, right? You will get value in that. Again, if you are the DIYer who would never hire for our Wake Me Up When It's Over service, fine, but take advantage of the hour. And you can do it right within your platform. If you're on a free version of our platform, it'll say upgrade here. You'll hit upgrade. You'll choose software plus expert, which will get you to be a member for the year for us in an hour with any one of our experts. Okay. And then again, same thing as you're checking out, use that same coupon code, DEAS20 for the 20% off. Lastly, if you're like, I'm somewhere in between there, I'm freaked out with these forms, but that's the only thing that freaks me out. We will do the FAFSA and the CSS profile for you and do get an hour with one of our experts to review these again, in addition to us manually completing them. And we will do things like here's which household should complete it. We will make that kind of strategy recommendation along these forms as well. So again, our rack rate is $1,500, $14.99. When you check out, you use this D20 coupon code for it that'll get you $300 off, right? 20% off. So again, if that's the only thing that is kind of your pain point keeping you up at night, and you're really not somebody that wants to, not make a mistake there, or forms aren't your thing, that's a worthwhile investment. Again, I think for the additional delta there, I don't want to minimize it, but to have unlimited support through every part of this process from now until your kid's moving into the dorm in August, you should. The way that I say this is the Christmas present, Hanukkah present, whatever you're celebrating.
Festivus.
What is it, Peggy?
Festivus from
Festivus, whatever
Seinfeld,
you're.
yes. Whatever
That's
you
right.
celebrate, or like I always like to say, even if you're not celebrating a holiday right now, who doesn't love to just give themselves a gift at any time?
That's
I
right.
love getting gifts. So,
That's right.
give yourself, and a lot of people are writing in all these questions, and I keep saying, you're going to need to appeal. You're going to need to appeal. Appealing is really nuanced. We know what we're doing. We've literally done thousands and thousands of these with our team. So we can help you with that in the full service. We can take the reins and basically guide you on every step. The ROI is typically huge there because even if you get $1,000 more, and that's for 4 years, there's $4,000 right there, right? You've already made a really nice return. So a lot of people are writing in because appealing is a huge part of this process. So just whatever lands for you, we're deliberately, and it's very well laid out here, we're deliberately trying to support everybody. And one of these, I'm sure, is speaking to you. I know it's, and Matt probably said this, but I was doing questions. It's probably hard to think about, really? I'm going to spend money now? I'm going to just blow this off until after the holidays. Deadlines are coming. These financial aid forms need to be submitted and hopefully correctly. So it's really something, it's an investment that will pay off for most parents, most families hugely, right? And forget about putting a dollar figure on your stress and just having a little bit of free time to chill and not be obsessing about this all the time too. So,
Yeah, and sorry, I think I just put this in the wrong section, but additional siblings are an additional $500 if you're doing our full service or our financial aid package. Just sign up for the one, we'll invoice you for the second. So that's how you'll do that. So if you do the full service, this covers you until you've gone, again, until your student is moving into the dorm. Subsequent years are $300. That's an important distinction because if you just hire us for the forms, you can do that every year, but it's going to be $14.99 every year. Okay, so the full service is a higher price point up front, but subsequent years $300. Um, okay, so I think it looks like we've got most of the questions. Like we said at the top, we could not get to all of them. Again, the coupon code, I'm putting it in here, is DEC, as in short for December 20, as in 20% off. Um,
yeah. And
and
if you're, somebody put in, can I call you to discuss? I mean, Matt's happy to chat with you if you're really trying to figure out if you can do this. Right. I'm just going to volunteer you for that because somebody, if you're not sure which option, um, he can chat with you,
Goodbye.
give you more detail on the Wake Me package. So you
Yep.
can see, because honestly, if you need a bunch of hours, not that it's going to equal the Wake Me, but it's a DIY, you get an hour, you get the feedback, but then you're back, you're doing it all yourself, right? We're helping you. Hey, this is how you need to appeal. If you're a true DIYer, you're off to the races. But a lot of people are like, I need another meeting. I want you to look at this. And it gets to be stressful. So if you want somebody to just take the reins, you're submitting your appeals, obviously, but we're literally driving the truck or the car, whatever you want to call it.
That's right, Peggy. All right, y'all. Well, appreciate you. I know it's a busy time of year, so thanks for your thanks for your all the thoughtful questions. There was a ton. Like I said, wish we could have got to all of them, but obviously we can support you beyond just kind of the education here, and you decide whether you want all the support, unlimited support. Again, that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, or at a minimum, just grab an hour and make sure you do one of those today before the discount expires there. All right, Peggy. Thank you
All
too.
right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Bye, guys.
Take care.